In back-to-back days, Richrod has bashed both Pitt and Marshall, and I can't get enough of it. And should we adjust our expectations based off what he said today? I'm just scared.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am the host around here, and this is Locked On West Virginia, brought to you by FanDuel. New customers right now can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Make sure you head to FanDuel.com to get started. And thanks for being Locked On West Virginia's best crowd, guys. You guys do an awesome job. Thanks for being an everyday listener and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every single day. Well, Richrod has parted a couple little shots here the last couple of days at Pitt and Marshall both. And while they're not huge shots, I decided to make them part of the thumbnail just because I think it's funny. Obviously, they had press conferences today. We're going to get into that too, everything they said, my takeaways from what both Zac Alley and Richrod had to say today. But last night, if you didn't see, Rich Rodriguez spoke to the crowd at the game. And funnily enough, come on the mic and said it's 206 days or whatever it is till we play Pitt. Pitt sucks, you know. And that was you got the ESP chants going on in the background. That was gold. And then today, Marshall, you know, he was talking about how we're one of the few programs who are really have a team that, you know, doesn't really have another pro team in the state, and we're kind of what matters in the state. And he said, sorry about the team down the road there. Basically saying, you know, they matter in Huntington, and that's about it. So I think it's funny. We'll see how much of a rivalry he and Gibby end up having before this is all said and done. But I got a kick out of both of those. I think Richrod, you know, that's the kind of player he was. It's the kind of coach he is. He's not going to hold back. He's going to talk his smack, man. And Narduzzi, he's not going to have. He doesn't have passive old Neil Brown to kind of pick on, or I don't want to say pick on because I think Neil Brown could hold his own. But you know, Neil Brown would take the high road. Richrod will just say whatever. So I found that to be funny. I almost titled the show this, but I don't know. I want to see practice first before I hit the panic button full on. But the first thing I have written down here, and I've got a whole notebook full, 4 pages of stuff. I've got 4 pages of stuff here that I've written down. You can see of just notes that I took from both press conferences. The number one thing I have on here is, should we adjust our expectations? You know, listening to Richrod talk about the roster, where it's at, what they're having to replace, it's shocking, you know. And I guess I got tied up in the portal hall, and you tell yourself, well, Eddie B's back. You know, you've got Jacoby Spells. I guess you've got, you know, you got guys places. You've got guys like there's so few players. I'm having trouble coming up with the names at the moment. But obviously Ben Cutter. You obviously got Reed Carrico. But there's not many names on that defense that you can just say are back as starters. And then who on offense besides Jaheim White is coming back as a starter? Rodney Gallagher. And I think that's the two he mentioned, Rodney Gallagher and Jaheim White. That's it. So this is a huge undertaking. And I guess we take for granted a little bit that he took the Jack State team with, I think they said they had 60 new players, and turned them into one of the best group of 5 teams in football last year. It's a different monster to try that in the Big 12, though. And I'm going to be very interested to see what they have to say, if they're honest with us about the progress they're making. But I've had in my head, like, secretly kind of been holding in there, like, maybe we can contend, in year one, just because that's just the kind of fan I am. I always fantasize about that stuff. When you get down to brass tacks, I don't know how much of a realistic possibility that actually is. So that was number one. Number two, we talked about it the other day on here, tampering, and the reason for the spring game changing to the spring showcase. Matt Rule made the comments that he made, and Richrod took notice. He said it in his press conference. When Matt Rule started talking about people looking at your players in the spring game to tamper with them, that made him, he was taken aback by it, and they adjusted. I think that was crazy, man. Not in a bad way towards Richrod. It's just crazy, number one, that happens to that level. And number two, that he listened to Matt Rule from across the country. Maybe he called him. I don't know. But I think one of the things I said about Richrod coming into this is he's going to be a bit naive to this era because he's been coaching at a lower level where if there's tampering, it's like only a couple players on the roster, as to where West Virginia, if you're a starter caliber Power 4 player, Power 5, whichever one you choose to say, you're going to be there. There's a program that's going to offer you something, and there's just enough programs with enough money to offer, everybody something pretty much. So, and maybe it's more than what you're getting, or maybe it's playing time with a similar dollar amount. Like there's a bunch of factors. Some guys get cars, houses, personal chefs, and $8 million. Like the kid the Mensa that went to Duke. You've got all kinds of stuff that happens, but yeah, agents are doing it obviously intermediately. Like I said, intermittently. I had an agent contact me about NIL deals for players that we didn't even have yet. We ended up getting them, but I had them contact me about doing NIL deals for certain players. Trying to scrounge up every dollar for these people, for their players. So that's basically their job, is to fundraise who can they get the most money from. It's that simple. Number 3 on the list that I got from Richrod here, and this is a big one. I think this one says a lot about the landscape and where we're at in college football. Week of meetings before the portal opens. Move to April 5th, preparing for the cut to 105. If you're not familiar, roster cuts are down from, I think, is it 120 to 105 this year? Or at least they're hoping not, but it seems like that maybe it'll be one more, Richrod's hoping it'll be one more year for that, but everything I've heard, it's going to go down to 105, which means we're at 106 right now. So we're not going to have everybody remaining, and they're going to trim the fat off the players they've seen in workouts and through these next few weeks of practices, and there are going to be some guys voluntarily leave that we just know are going to go. And I think the fact that you have to reschedule everything to focus on those meetings, it's very smart. First of all, you got to prepare. Let's not pretend like it don't happen, because it does. It's going to happen. People are going to leave. So you might as well just prepare for it and have meetings. That way you're ahead of the crowd, ahead of the curve, and you can prepare accordingly. Like, let's say Jaheim White's going to leave. I'm not saying he is. Some people say he is. I'm not going to jump to that conclusion until I talk to him. And I don't think he was going to tell me, but until it's out there or there's some kind of rumblings, I'm not going to believe it. So, and we'll know, because if he's going to transfer, he's probably not going to participate in any spring practices, or he won't be around. If you already know that, why would you risk an injury? Never mind. He's hurt anyways. That's what I forgot. Never mind. Cut that out. That actually doesn't apply. But generally, if he was healthy, I think that's what you would, You would know that. So, anyways, who knows who's going to be here, who's going to be gone, and more portal guys will be coming in. So that's going to be really interesting to see. The quarterback room is absolutely a competition. I think that was pretty clear. As a matter of fact, he said there's no solidified starter in any position, maybe besides running back, if Jaheim stays. He didn't say that, but I'm saying it. If Jaheim stays, likely he's going to win the job. But I think those other guys could push him for it, no doubt about it. And look, you save yourself probably quite a bit of money if he does go to bring in some other dynamic players. So, there's two sides to all of it. I thought it was funny. He said he threw up watching the Texas Tech and Pitt games. That made me laugh. Certainly, they were bad. They were absolutely bad. Let's see. Was there anything else of note that I thought that needed to be talked about? He did talk about Nico. He said in his opportunities he played really well. He's been pleased with him coming back, and they think they have a good competition in the rooms. Feels more comfortable with the talent that they have there and their ability to run. Obviously, they're going to play with 11. He says that a lot. He did reiterate the concerns on offense and defense about basically no starters are coming back on either side of the ball, or very few. I mean, it's like 2 on each side of the ball, if that. He said he didn't know. He's pretty sure that he's never been a part of a team that don't have anybody coming back. So, we're like, was there 4 or 5 total guys? It's just crazy, man. It's just an insane amount of turnover, and that's why I say we should probably, or maybe it's just me, I should adjust my expectations. One last thing I thought that he talked about that I thought was important, and it's something that we've discussed on here already before. That's the approach to NIL. He said you have to spread out the money to certain positions like they do in the NFL. They have a model in place, and the way it works is, left tackle 1, cornerback 1, quarterback 1, all make a certain amount that has a little bit of room upward or downward depending on how your starters are playing. And I think that's a smart model to have. Obviously, if Nico Marchiol has just an amazing year, like let's say something like Tyler Huff, where he had 1,500 rushing yards, you get to a conference championship game, well, then obviously you're going to move within the margins of that. You don't want to lose your quarterback. It's one of the positions. Now, you can't lose your entire other roster for a quarterback, but you can certainly pay a guy a lot of money and hope nobody comes after him. So that's pretty much what I got from Richrod. He didn't say much else, but I did get a kick out of him talking about Marshall and Pitt, saying they suck, saying Pitt sucks, and then Marshall today saying that basically nobody cares about them outside of Huntington. So I got a big kick out of that for sure. And I'm looking forward to more press conferences from Richrod as we go. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, guys, let's talk about Zac freaking Alley, man. So impressed with him. He came in and he blows me away with some of the things he says in his press conferences. Let's talk about him next. This is Locked On West Virginia. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia is going to be brought to you by Return on You. That's right. The future of college sports is here, and it's transparent. Before the Return on You app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table. Fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the athletes they know and love. Now, with Return on You, you get to be part of the change and support West Virginia athletes in the most transparent way possible. Return on You, the NIL app, allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, and receive exclusive content from the athletes you back up. The best part is if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Return on You app is giving fans control. No more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and future of college sports with your contributions. Download the Return on You app now from the App Store and start backing West Virginia athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. The future of college sports, well, that's now. Join it now by downloading Return on You and supporting your favorite players. And we are back here on Locked On West Virginia in segment 2. We crack our dew and get ready to talk about Zac freaking Alley. One of these days, I'm going to remember to turn my phone off before I come on a show. But I'm so worried. I leave my bringer on almost all the time because, I mean, I've got some important messages coming in and out, especially right now. Like, I'll have a big update tomorrow. I'll go ahead and prep you guys for this before I talk about Alley. So I've been corresponding with people in the Jordan Leslie camp, and happy to hear that he was exonerated, or not exonerated, but the charges did not stick in that situation, and that he was the prosecution saw fit to basically say, hey, there's nothing here. And that's what happened. Nothing, literally what was said didn't happen. So I'll be having a bigger update on that. I've got the lawyer and everybody. I've got a statement and everything, and I'll be dropping that tomorrow. So be waiting for that. And then possibly have Jordan Leslie on here in the future to talk. I think, he never really got a chance to say goodbye to anybody. And, he gave us his time and effort over close to a few years there. And he had 2 really good defenses that were in the top 10, top 20. So, I feel like he got a bad shake because, look, he didn't choose every player that walked in the door. Neil Brown signed off on most of those guys. There was a GM in place that picked them as well. And, I understand the scheme. You want to look at it and say it was, the way it looked last year was really bad. And I don't think even he would defend it, but it wasn't like his entire stand. He was an upstanding guy the whole time he was here. But like the way he handled the media, the way he handled the press was really, really good. And I loved how personable he was. So I think he deserves a chance to kind of get on and talk about it if he wants to. And I want to support that because I have been wrongly accused of something before, something I didn't do. It's a horrible situation to be in because it sticks to you for forever. In a lot of cases, I got accused of a burglary charge that I wasn't even in the area for, and ended up going to jail and doing the time for it because I was a kid and didn't know how to fight against it. I did years over it. So it took me a long time to get over that. And I bring that up, just that's one of the reasons why I am helping with this, because I know what it's like to, even though the charges aren't that serious, or at least as serious as mine were, it's something that I'm passionate about because I know what it's like to be there. So anyway, I know I got off track here. You guys came to hear about Zac Alley. So I thought, first of all, man, he's an impressive communicator. I really love the way he gets his point across in the media. And I watched a bunch of film on him recently as well. I got some thoughts on what they do defensively. What does he want his defense to look like? Well, he wants to be really multiple, rotates between a 3 and 4 down front, and ultimately wants to be hard to prepare for. Pass rush is extremely important. People are going to throw the ball in the Big 12. As a matter of fact, 50 less tosses per game in the SEC, moving from the Big 12. So more run heavy in the SEC than in the Big 12. So people are going to toss the ball around. Well, that actually plays to the strength of what Zac Alley does on defense. He wants to be good on the edges, and that shows on tape, man. They almost never get beat outside. It's just the way they play defense. It's the way they set it up. Sometimes they'll be in that 4-2-5. Sometimes they'll be in a 3-3-5. Sometimes they'll be in a 4-2-5 that flips into a 3-3-5, or a 3-3-5 that flips into a 4-2-5. Sometimes they're in a 4-3. They really do a ton of different stuff, and a lot of it is built around controlling the edges with either defensive ends or corners, linebackers. It's really well done. And I'm trying to bring a guy on from Oklahoma who broke down a lot of Zac Alley tape whenever he came to Oklahoma last year. And because I watched it and I was impressed with what he did there. So that's what we're going to do. There's one more thing that I want to see on here. Let's see if I can find it. I'm going to play it for you guys just because I thought it was super impressive. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it really quick. All right. Yeah, this is it right here. So this is about 20 seconds of Rodriguez talking about. Let me see who this is really quick. Okay, yeah. This is Richrod talking about why he was brought in to Morgantown. I meant to play this earlier. Let's play it now.
I didn't get hired for nostalgia reasons. You know what I mean? I got hired to win. That's why I'm sitting here, not because they wanted to talk about 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is. I got hired because the expectation is to win.
I love that. I love it, guys. I really love it, And as a matter of fact, I came this close to titling my video "Hired to Win." I thought that was a great thumbnail. Hired to win, but I decided to go the route I did. I don't know if it's a good or bad, but either way, I love the fact that that's what he understands, that nostalgia has very little to do with the hire, and that he was hired to win. So a couple other things. He addressed the reason he came to West Virginia, albeit I feel like there wasn't a lot there as far as context, really. I mean, he went into it. He said he has a history with Coach Rod at Louisiana Monroe, loves how Coach Rod treats people. He was asked a question about, what do you look for in players? He likes them long, fast, and physical. And with the rebuild right now, the level of understanding isn't there, and they're still learning. So that's another thing that he brought up. Let's go to break really quick, guys, and we will we'll finish up here on Zac Alley. We'll be right back. This is Locked On West Virginia. Zac Alley said he's been part of number 1 overall defenses and 10 top 20, more than 10 actually, top 20 defenses. That's impressive. I didn't know that. When you think about it, and this is probably a video in itself, which I would like to maybe do. Well, it's a segment anyway. You start to realize what we're building here on defense, guys. It may not come around this year. It may not. But you look at who's on staff here that was on Clemson's staff. You've got Warlick, Weinreich, and Alley all back together again, who were on that Clemson staff and helped build Clemson into what they were on defense at times. Obviously, Venables was a huge part of that. But the 3 guys that were probably in the engine room for Coach Venables is now in the engine room at West Virginia for Coach Rod. Do you know how big that is? Do you know how full circle it is as well? The loss against West Virginia in the Orange Bowl is literally what spurred Dabo and Clemson into the run that they had. And now here we are, however many years later, 12 years later, and a lot of those same coaches are now at West Virginia trying to help us get to a similar place. Well, I mean, I'll take 80% of what Clemson did, but yeah. So he said he wants the players to know that he has a supremely high standard. And, I think of Gordon Ramsay when I hear that. What does Gordon Ramsay always talk about when he said that, how he made his kitchen successful? If you watch Ramsay, you'll know what I'm talking about. He always talks about the standard, right? Like if you've ever worked in a restaurant like I have and you do expo, obviously you're watching these plates as they go out. You want to make sure everything is cooked like it's supposed to. Everything is built like it's supposed to. The presentation is like it's supposed to be. And you can get caught up trying to rush things. And it's actually a really good comparison because in football, you can rush a guy to being where he's not quite ready. Maybe he's got the physical ability, but like a Lance Dixon, right? He had a ton of physical ability, 5-star player, and yet just mentally couldn't get over that hurdle for whatever reason. Similarly with food, you can do that because you're worried about ticket times. You're worried about backing up the kitchen, and you can send something out that's not really ready yet, and then you lose customers. So same thing here. You got to have a standard, right? Like I know Nico Markiel has a really strong arm and great mobility, but if he doesn't understand coverage or if he's still throwing it into double coverage, none of it matters. And so having a high standard, I think personally, it's like on my Mount Rushmore of things that you got to have in a program. Like the standard, what is it? What is your standard? Because I think with Richrod and Zac Alley, it's going to be really high. They've set the bar at national championship, or at least Richrod has. Now, whether he actually believes that or not, I don't know, but it's there. And I think if we can come close to that, most of us will be happy, right? I think we would love to get in the playoffs once. We would love to win a Big 12. We would love to do what we used to do, and that's win one here and there. Even if it's every 3 years or so, we would love to be in the race, like really in the race. Not like West Virginia is tied for first, 7 weeks into the season. Like, okay, West Virginia is going to the Big 12 championship, or if they win this game, they go to the Big 12 championship. Like, that's where we want to get to, where we're in those conversations again. And it's truly embarrassing that we haven't been over the course of these 12 years, or is it a little more? 2012. So we played Baylor in 2012. So, yeah, that's 12 years, man, that we've been basically in oblivion. That's a lifetime. That's like Nebraska now. That's like Texas was, And even though we didn't have the level of success that those programs had, we had our level of success. And it's been gone for 12 years, guys. I mean, you could say 2010 was a successful year. You could say 2011 was okay. 2012 was obviously pretty good. A couple of the Will Greer seasons were okay. Obviously we were ranked in those seasons, and that's pretty good. But like at West Virginia, we're at least in the conference championship discussion sometimes. And if you'd have told me in 2012, by 2025, not only will you not have won a Big 12 championship, you hadn't even been in the conversation. And not only that, but the coach you had for the last 6 years leading up to that didn't have any signature wins to speak of, or any wins on the road. Like it got, it's to a point to where I'm like, I sometimes I'm shocked at just exactly how far we've fallen as a program. So the standard. Talent and intelligence wins championships. He used a Michael Jordan quote that I'm very familiar with. I was happy to hear him say that. It's very true. He also said sometimes they'll have 3 safeties, sometimes they'll have 2 safeties and 3 linebackers, talking about how they're just change everything up week to week. And then I think the last thing I have written down here, let me make sure. Yeah. So he said, and the last thing, I didn't get to watch every minute of the press conference, but I got, I think I missed the last 10 minutes because I was in a rush to get this up. But, he said that he needs a commitment from the players, and I agree. I think that's the big deal, obviously. I think they believe they've been getting it to an extent. And I'm going to be honest, man. It's going to take a new level of commitment than the players that have been here are used to. And the incoming players from Jack State, and hopefully bring it with them. And hopefully it spreads, to use a John Rothstein term, so that our piss can get nuclear again. Because right now we've kind of got warm, right? Like we're in that warm phase of piss. We need nuclear piss, and we need it fast, guys. Thanks for watching. I will be going back live. It's probably within the next couple hours. I've got more videos to do, so I can't stop here. I've got more stuff to talk about than just this here. So we'll be back on here in a little bit. We obviously have Texas Tech coming up. That's a big game. Trying to get somebody on for that. I've got the guy coming on to talk Zac Alley possibly and more. Got the Jordan Leslie situation to talk more about. Please come back for those guys, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Thanks for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen, for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every single day. But how about Locked On College Basketball, guys? For your second listen, check them out. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Don't wait for March. Be the most informed college basketball fan now. And find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Richrod, Zac Alley, doing work, man. Doing work. And we're happy to hear it here on Locked On West Virginia. Let's follow that to the end and see where it takes us. I'm out of here.